I'm Shavonda.
I'm Therrin.
Our friend decided for us. She asked why we were still continuing to look for a rental property. And she just kind of kept probing about buying a house. And I kept telling her we weren't ready. I convinced Therrin, my husband, to come along on the ride.
We had a plan, and we thought it was still a couple years out. We didn't know that we were in a place where it could be a reality so soon. Because so much of the process was unknown, our own idea of what it meant to be ready. And so that just didn't match with the reality. When the opportunity was put before us, we thought, why not? Let's see.
I was afraid of every bit of it. The unknown, the process, the entire process was the scary part.
Feeling not ready was a big part of the processing, thinking, not knowing what to expect, post buying. The house is this, but then after closing, what's going to go wrong, in the house. That was a little scary too.
And then the possibility, I think, of rejection. If I'm to be totally transparent, the possibility of rejection and how to handle rejection if that was the outcome. Each milestone, if there's going to be rejection at each milestone. And so not having that happen felt good, but then it was like, okay, well, are they going to reject us in this next phase of it? Okay, we got past that. Are they going to reject us when we get to the next phase? And the rejections never came. So
thinking about the lender, us providing all the upfront information, going through the process, and then rejecting. Then there's also putting in an offer. How is the seller going to view the offer? And then what about the competitive offers? Will they go with someone else's offer instead of ours? So that was a roller coaster.
Yeah, for sure. We only talked to Jessica and Stephen. Turns out they are absolutely the dream team. So
there were people that I had hellos with, that wanted to invite us to the process. And I was like, oh, well, hi, nice to meet you. No, I'm not ready. That kind of thing. But not seriously initiate a professional relationship with.
I don't like to get my hopes up high like that. But mostly him. And he'd be like, babe, look at this house. I'm like, oh, it's cute. Thanks. And then go back to scrolling on my phone. But yeah, I don't like to get emotionally involved until I know something is for real. So he was the one that was always inviting me to look and explore and things.
There was some window shopping, but inadvertently, I'd say, looking for where you want to rent your next place. And some of those apps, they have rental options and sell options. So as just looking for your next rental, sometimes you see stuff that's for sale and you're like, ooh, and then you look at it, you're like, hey, so we start having conversation and planning, and she already had a vision board.
So in our former office, I had a vision board. Went to a vision board party 2 years ago, and I made 2 separate ones. And one had house, type of house, 2 houses actually, and the other one had some other things. And so anytime I would work at my desk and at our desk in the office, that vision board was right there on the wall. That vision board came to reality. The one I like the most on my vision board, our house is very close to that color. It's not exactly the style, but it's that color. The scenery around it is basically the same. So that was encouraging.
I think also just the fact that it was on your vision board and you manifested a commitment to what you want and what we want, and you put it down, and that, I think that in the background helped make it a reality. The initial thing I noticed about both Stephen and Jessica were the confidence that they had about the process. Shavonda was saying, we need to, think about what's next. This is our time frame. And Jessica would say, oh yeah, you're going to have a house by the end of that time frame. When we met Stephen for the first time, he was very calm, very confident, and gave us a realistic view of what the process could look like. Their confidence versus our inexperience, it really helped bridge the gap. Our inexperience, and fear and of the unknown, was really calmed by their confidence. And in addition to that, when we expressed what we wanted, what we were looking for, that impacted what Steven showed us, what Jessica showed us, and they really like listened to what we want. And then also there was no pressure, like if we saw something and we decided it wasn't for us, there was no pressure to compromise. Steven said, I don't want to, I want to see you do backflips. And until you do backflips, it's not the one, then that's fine. We'll move on. And that's exactly how it went. So
it was very positive. Jessica, they're both very positive, energetic people of extreme faith. He says confidence. I'm calling it faith because the first thing Jessica said to me when I talked to her on the phone was, "Oh, get ready to buy a house." My response, I was purposefully not going to speak against where her faith was. And I made it my point to elevate my faith where hers was. And so I said, I'm not going to talk against what you just said, because that was like one of the first things she said to me. I'm not going to speak against what you just said, Jessica. I'm just going to trust. Because of my faith, I decided to trust God. And I said, I'm just going to trust God and see where this goes. And the rest of it was just me and my husband just purposefully trusting in our personal lives, trusting God and trusting the process, trusting Jessica, trusting Steven in the process. And so that's how we ended up where we are.
I think of it like Yoda and Luke. Yoda was telling Luke, "Hey, do this, do that," and Luke was like, "That don't make sense," But when he listened, it worked out. And in the end, there was no try; it was only do. She mentioned milestones earlier, and so as each milestone passed, this is really happening. Is this really happening? This is really happening. But then we had to contain ourselves because there was still another milestone. We had to see that next thing, and up until I think
the 24
when we were signing the papers, even in that, there was still a little disbelief as we were finishing the closing.
I know that it's elevated my faith a lot. It's elevated my thinking, elevated my mindset, and it's elevated what I perceive as possible. In my heart, I wanted to believe like I had this elevated faith in thinking and stuff, and apparently I didn't. But this process has really manifested the elevation that I thought I had. And so I'm very grateful for this process. I'm very grateful for how it has elevated the possibilities for us.
There's work in getting yourself financially together. There's work in establishing a positive credit history. And, when you've had to go through things and draw yourself up from there and grow, so from that perspective to being a homeowner, it makes me feel like that work is worth it, and it is possible for whoever wants to reach out for it. And all you have to do is focus, put in the work, and you'll be there sooner than what you think. So now I feel like the sky's the limit moving forward. So multiple homes, property owners, business, entrepreneurship, whatever we reach out for, set our sights on, I see it as much more achievable now.
I never wanted to buy in this expensive city, never. And I told him that repeatedly. Once we got to a point where it's like, okay, I do really like it here. I do want to stay here. I just got to accept the fact that it's just going to be expensive. And so having a previous experience with buying something that I settled on, that stuck with me, that I would never settle. If I got to pay for something, I'm not going to settle for something that is not what I want to pay for. And I almost fell into that trap. My husband, being the great husband that he is, he saved me from that. And we had a list anyway of what we wanted and what we really needed to have, the must-haves. And so we stuck to that. And even in the moment where I wanted to fold against the must-haves list, he was like, "No, babe, that's going to take too much work. We work too much to be trying to renovate and live in it at the same time." And so him speaking up and coming to my rescue, we ended up with something that is basically 98% of what we wanted.
Yeah, very much. We've had conversations prior to having the serious conversation with pen and paper, discussing what we want. We've had conversations just throughout our relationship on what our wants is. And I saw the vision board too. It was posted up, and you once you have a vision board and it's posted up and you just live in life and from time to time glance at it, it becomes subliminal. So I know what her interests are, and no compromising, because after you compromise, you're gonna have regrets. You're gonna be kicking yourself. I should have. Why didn't I? And no, not on my watch. And she does the same for me about other things. So, and even sometimes during this process. So,
and so regarding the cost, we didn't mind paying what we ended up paying because it was what we wanted. It comes easier when it's what you want and you don't have a lot of work to do to it. Like, it's just cosmetic things. And so it made the cost okay.
I think to grow the equity, to grow ourselves, and to prepare for what's next.
I'm excited about unboxing everything and setting the house up to look and reflect what we envision our home to look like. And I'm excited about that. And I'm an interior designer by master's degree. And so I'm looking forward to making our home reflect what has always been in my heart. That's exciting for me, and letting him see my full capabilities.
And for me, just getting out the way. Well, I'm gonna have to do a lot, but but whatever she tells me, that's what I'm about to do.
Responsible as possible with like your finances, your credit, your spending. Don't count yourself out so quickly. You never know how well off you are in the process or in a potential process like this. And so just talk to the people that you know. I would recommend talking to Jessica and Stephen, seeing where you are in the process and see if it's a good time for you. See if it's a goal for you. Like, just try.
If you are building your financial stability and your credit, don't let any hurdles or life storms cause you to compromise. Stick to that and let other stuff around you change, but not your stability and your credit. Even if you think it's several years out, and if they were going to work with Team Talton, I would be like, yeah, take the leap, because you will either find out, this is what's possible now, or this is what you need to do for it to be possible. Either way is good news. Just keep moving forward.
And then even when you get in the process, like for example, during this process, we had 4 family members to pass away within a week. And we were navigating that, and we were in the middle of this home buying process. And so we had to navigate those tremendous losses while trying to enjoy this process. And so even when you get to this home buying process, try to find the balance, even when life is still lifing on the other side of this home buying process.
Exactly what was said, by both Stephen and Jessica, as far as, don't worry, this is what's going to happen. It happened. And so now we have a different viewpoint on things, and we're going to take that viewpoint and keep making stuff happen. A roller coaster with a happy ending.
I envisioned a warm pillow in a very rough time, and they were like warm comfort every bit of the way. Very warm, confident comfort. And even though, like, for me, I'm going to speak for myself, my husband was cool and calm, I wasn't. And they were absolutely confident. And that was very encouraging. And it helped a lot, helped us get to the finish line. They made it easier. They made it seem more doable. They made it where we felt comfortable. We felt confident because of their confidence. We felt comfortable because of how comfortable they made us. And in the times where I kept telling my husband, I don't want to do this. I'm done, it's too much. Jessica would be like, girl, you got this. You got this. And Stephen would come with his calm confidence, and be like, hey, we're good. We just got to do this next. I'm like, okay. It was very soothing. And as a 43-year-old adult, you think you don't need soothing like that. But in big times like this, you need soothing. And they were very soothing, very comfortable. They're very, very confident, very everything we needed.